RimWorld, the infamously wonderful colony sim game where quite literally anything goes. Whatever beautiful, dark, and twisted fantasy you come up with can be performed in this game. What's that? You want to overhunt the local turkey population? Go ahead. PETA doesn't exist over here. And now, you want to open fire on every human you come across? I mean, basic human decency doesn't exist over here either. Oh, you're gonna crash land on this planet and immediately start committing an ungodly amount of war crimes so that you're guaranteed to replace Beelzebub as Satan's right-hand man in the afterlife? Alright, now you're speaking my language. For today's challenge, I thought it would be fun to put my RimWorld skills to the test, in a weird but fitting way. I wanted to see how many unique war crimes I could commit within the span of one RimWorld month, or 15 RimWorld days. To do this effectively, I would need a lot of foresight, a good understanding of how the game's mechanics works, and an extensive amount of background research. So, yeah, I did spend an hour and a half of my life reading all 4 Geneva Conventions and some other documents that you probably don't care about. Listen, I was bored during a stats lecture. What else was I supposed to do? I started on the crash landed scenario and played on all the default settings, except I made the seed the title of this video. Cassandra would be the unfortunate storyteller who would have to bear witness to my actions, and I put her on the hardest difficulty. No, I am not a digital masochist. I just like a challenge. Our ragtag criminal organization was composed of 3 spirited individuals: Patricia, the human computer, Houston, the medieval farm oaf, and Maker, the Tachikoma. 2 intellectuals, and someone who never figured out how to make a cobblestone generator. 2 people who touch grass once a year, and someone who sleeps with a dried body pillow. How the fuck did these 3 end up together on a ship and crash land on this RimWorld? I have no clue, but we're all here now, unified under one common goal: to be the world's most notorious war criminal. There were a lot of things we had to accomplish before we could actually get to the fun stuff though. After all, every good execution needs a great plan behind it, and that's exactly how I want to kick things off. I used this mountain as a starting point to plan a general layout out for what my base was going to look like. It'd have to be pretty bare bones, but it would suffice for what I wanted to do. A couple of beds, 2 research stations, a singular table, and a hospital located outside of our base. Yup, outside of our base. Trust me, it'll be important later. And so, my pawns got to work on creating their dream war base. And while they're doing that, let me give you the rundown on what war crimes are. Now, I don't want to give you an 80-minute lecture on what the Geneva Convention is, but I do want to show you this, which is basically the background info I looked at while doing this challenge. The one thing I want to mention is that the Geneva Convention is split into 4 parts. So, if I'm talking about the first convention, that means I'm talking about the rules and regulations to treating wounded and sick soldiers. If I'm talking about the third convention, that means I'm talking about how to treat prisoners of war properly. There are also links in the description for these sources, just in case you get bored during a stats lecture. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when I took US history in high school, I was unconscious for like 80% of that, and I turned out just fine. Well, for the most part. By now, Day 1 had passed, and we had constructed about half of our colony. It was a good start, but we were still missing a research table. Actually, we were still missing a regular table, so my colonists were forced to eat without it. Which isn't technically illegal, though I'm pretty sure that everyone watching this video just lost all the respect for me. I also began collecting jade from the mining deposits around the map, which would cause our colony's wealth to increase. This would be really important, because the wealthier your colony is, the larger and harder your raids become, and the more raiders the game sends our way, the more chances I have to commit war crimes. Day 2 involved more construction, and we fleshed out the remainder of our base. Day 3 was when we actually started to research all the technologies we needed for this run. We needed to work our way up to tox gas, which would allow us to breach the Geneva Protocol by committing chemical warfare. But we also need to unlock gunsmithing, so that we could misuse some incendiary weapons and cause some forest fires. But getting to those projects would require us to first research smithing and machining. This is exactly why I built 2 research benches and brought 2 intellectuals onto the team, so that we could blow through the research requirements and actually make the things that we wanted to. So things were going well off the jump. Maker and Patricia were learning about weaponsmithing, and while they were doing that, a small friendly group approached us and offered to trade a few items. Obviously, my first thought was, how can I turn them into my prisoners of war? But I decided to check their inventory first.
Oh my god!
What a godsend. Sure, it would cost all of our silver, but what is currency, if not a means to buy the items that we want? That rifle immediately went into the hands of our best shooter, and suddenly, I was feeling a lot more confident about our circumstances. Alright, I'll spare you guys. You guys are cool for selling me that rifle. The next couple of days involved more research and general stockpiling of resources. Cassandra sent a mad raccoon my way to try and foil my grandiose plans, and that genius level scheme ended exactly how you expected. On day 5, we completed smithing and immediately started working towards machining. At one point, Houston tried romancing Patricia with his singular point in social skills. He confessed to her that she looked strikingly similar to the Dryad, and he wanted her to, quote, be my new body pillow. His words, not mine. But Patricia was not going for it. She politely told him to fuck off, causing Houston to suffer a -6 mood debuff. Hey, that's tough, man, but you got it next time though, for sure. Besides that minor hiccup, we were all in high spirits. And finally, on the first day of the new month, we got our first raider. Finally, we're getting to the good stuff. First things first, I placed my shooters behind the walls of the hospital. In the First Geneva Convention, Article 4 of Annex 1 states that hospital zones shall not be situated in areas which may become important for the conduct of the war. By using the hospital as cover, I'd say that this area is important to the conduct of the war, and is thus our first war crime on this planet. The actual fight went well enough too. Houston got injured, but he would live, and more importantly, our raider was downed and not dead. This meant that we could capture her and place her in our nice and cozy prison cell. Our 1x3, dirty-ass, steel-walled prison cell. Article 25 of the 3rd Convention says that prisoners of war need to be housed just as well as our pawns. Article 26 says that prisoners need to be fed sufficiently. Article 27 requires us to provide them with clothing. And finally, Article 29 says that we need to make sure our prison camps are clean at all times. So, naturally, I stuck our friend here in a tiny-ass box, stripped her of all her clothing, and refused to feed her and clean her cell. And of course I didn't forget to torture her. Are you crazy? I did Harlan Ellison a solid and surgically removed her tongue. Well, she still had a mouth. She just couldn't scream. And I know someone's gonna mention this in the comments, so I'll just say it here. No, I didn't use the War Crimes Expanded mod. I know, blasphemous. That mod makes the shit I'm doing right now look like charity work. But for this challenge in particular, I want to see how far I can get without modding my game. I did have a couple of quality of life mods installed, and I mentioned those in the description, but every action that you see in here is just straight vanilla gameplay. Oh, and I almost forgot, Article 87 of the 3rd Convention. So, after 6 days, we had performed 6 crimes against humanity. Life was looking up for us. Houston was on a way to a speedy and full recovery, and progress and research was moving fast. We also decided that we want to keep our war prisoner around for a little bit longer, so we sent Houston, with his singular point in social skills, to go and break her will. Houston went into the cell, and immediately started breaking down about how Patricia didn't want to be with him. He said that after he got rebuffed, he felt physically and mentally exhausted, and at one point during his monologue, he got on all fours and kissed the grass in front of him, in a vain attempt to connect himself to the Dryad once more. Assassin saw this and pitied the poor man. She quickly carved some words into the side of the wall. I help you, and you let me go. Houston wiped the tears from his eyes. There was a plan forming in that small little brain of his, and for it to work out, he'd need Assassin's help. Anyway, we were almost done with machining. Assassin was finally able to get out of bed and help us with our day-to-day tasks. Well, she could help us after she ate some food. I hadn't fed her for like 4 days at this point. I can't remember exactly how many days. And you know what, Assassin? Go ahead and get you one. You deserve it for being such a good sport. I won't even be mad at you. Go ahead and get you one. Oh. You know what? This kinda reminds me of the first time I got high. So, while our prisoner was getting too lit, Patricia and Maker were busy finishing up machining. Now, we could actually start working on gunsmithing, which would unlock incendiary warfare for us. Also, we were able to commit another crime on day 8. Hi, I'm a shiny Wovie. I only show up in videos when the original Wovie says something stupid and I have to come and clarify. In this particular case, this dumbass lost all sense of time and started calling day 9 day 8, and then he continued that through day 12. Like I said, he's a dumbass. Again, just to clarify, these next 4 days are days 9 through 12, not 8 through 11. Also, we were able to commit another crime on day 8. This time, it was something simple. Article 50 in 3rd Convention gives a list of authorized work that prisoners can perform, and one of those jobs are, quote, public works and building operations which have no military character or purpose. So, by forcing Assassin to build this wood-fired generator, we broke the rule. Or, at least I think I did. The generator was used to power this machining table, which was then used to make weapons. And for that reason, I'd say that the generator has a military purpose, or character to it at least. So technically, I committed a war crime. I don't know. You guys can let me know what you think of that in the comments, but for the sake of getting a bigger number at the end of this video, I'm gonna count it. So I was pretty optimistic about our chances going into day 9. Until I wasn't. You see, RimWorld does this funny thing, where as soon as you feel really good about yourself, your entire existence instantly gets humbled. Thankfully, it was only 2 mental breaks, but now Assassin was going to be bedridden for the next couple of days. This really pissed off Houston, because for the last couple of days he'd been planning out his next advance, and his loyal prisoner's catatonic state really stuck a pin in all of his plans. But hey, at least we learned how to gunsmith, and can now start researching chemical warfare, right? And since Tox Gas doesn't require a whole lot of brain power, I assigned Maker to start making an incendiary launcher, which weirdly doesn't require chem fuel to make. All you need is 75 steel and 4 components, and I had plenty of those to go around. On day 10, we tapped into our ideology and decided to turn Patricia into a gunyanor. A gunyanor? I don't know how to pronounce that. Listen, I'm not here for phonetics, alright? I'm here to murder people. A large war merchant group arrived on day 11, selling nothing particularly useful. Assassin also finally got up out of bed, much to the delight of Houston, who immediately went and told her his grand plan. We also finished the research on Tox weapons and started crafting some the next day. These grenades would be the last weapon we needed before we could perform some more war crimes. You see, defending your own base from raiders is one thing, but going to someone else's turf and committing war crimes there? Now that's some real shit. I was prepping to bring everybody along for a raid on the neighboring faction base, including my war prisoner. Think of it as a fun bonding activity. We would bring along our newly crafted grenades and flame launcher for the festivities, but everyone is really tired today. We have to save all that for tomorrow. With dawn breaking, we began to pack all our stuff. Our weapons, the packaged survival meals that I'd been saving for this very moment. This was it. This would be the final hoorah of our colony. We were gonna go out there and show the RimWorld what it's like to be real war criminals. Patricia didn't hesitate. She immediately went toe-to-toe with her. Houston stood from the sidelines, watching. He watched as Patricia expertly weaved Assassin's attacks. There was blood pouring on from both sides, and Houston ran behind the hospital to make sure she didn't notice him. And then, it was over. Assassin fell to the floor. Houston thought his chest was going to explode at this point, and Patricia would be okay after a little bit of bed rest. But with Assassin laid out and Patricia slightly banged up, we couldn't go raid our neighbors anymore. But where I saw failure and an inability to commit war crimes, Houston saw something else. He saw a chance, an opportunity. With Patricia going to the research bench to take some of the edge off, and with Maker tending to Assassin all day, he had his chance. He did it. The mad lad did it. The plant-loving Redditor actually got a girl. I mean, who could have known that the wise gurus on r/dating advice were actually helping single lonely men over here get some hoes? Just look at this masterclass right here. Houston tried to romance Patricia by exaggerating his own leg hair. What the fuck? You hear that, single men in the audience? If you ever want to fall in love with a girl, get your war prisoner, get your friend to fight her, and then you let her win the fight, and then you show her the leg hair. I bet those alpha male videos didn't teach you that, huh?
But, shouldn't Houston have saved Patricia from Assassin? Wouldn't that be more romantic? He kinda just stood there and—
Shut up! Houston's riz is far beyond your comprehension. Have you ever shown a girl your leg hair and then got laid? That's what I thought. Oh yeah, they definitely shaved their legs. Ain't no exaggeration going on over here. But one quick look at the bald-legged ops told me they were not here to mess around. 2 heavy SMGs and a revolver aimed straight at our domes. Still, this was a great opportunity to commit some more war crimes, which, let me remind you, is why we're all here in the first place. I know you were emotionally invested in Patricia and Houston's love story, but again, that's not why we're here. Jeez, sometimes it feels like I'm the only emotionally stable one here. Our 3 soldiers took up positions near the abandoned ruins, and the raiders were cautiously making their way around the lake. But those fools left us with a critical opportunity. One guy was super far ahead of the others. If I could quickly knock him out, our lives would be so much easier. And so, we moved up even more, using the foliage as cover instead. By now, the battle had begun. But Houston, the absolute Giga Chad that he is, rushes forward, tox grenades in hand, blinded by love and determined to see Patricia again after the war. He throws a grenade and it lands beautifully right next to the raider. Gone. But Houston wasn't done yet. Meanwhile, Patricia and Maker were in the fight of their lives. An incendiary round lands on a raider and sets him on fire, causing him to flail about, but Maker takes some shots and gets downed. Houston, seeing his lover defenseless and his friend on the ground, charges forward, gets behind his man, and throws another beautiful nade. Maker smiles as he sees the poisonous gas fill the atmosphere. He knows that the battle has been won, and even before the final raider can yell retreat, the fire becomes too much for him to handle. But Houston wasn't finished. These raiders would pay for even thinking of firing a bullet at his friend and his lover, and for shaving their legs. So he picks up the heavy SMG off the ground. He stares directly into that dying man's eyes. One burst is all it takes. The other raider can't even take solace in a quick death. He deserves to bleed out. He then picks up Maker's homemade incendiary launcher and lights the forest ablaze. Somewhere out there, he hears the Dryad's wails and cries. But he doesn't care anymore. He had someone better. And with that, Houston triumphantly walks off, victorious. Oh, yeah, let me tell you about all the war crimes I committed in that sequence. Sorry, my bad. First of all, I annihilated the Geneva Protocol by using those tox grenades in combat. I also started a forest fire, and according to the CCW, it is prohibited to make forests or other kinds of plant cover the object of attack by incendiary weapons unless they are being used to conceal combatants or other military objectives. I used my incendiary weapon on some trees after combat, so I broke that protocol for sure. Next, Article 3 of the First Geneva Convention states that you cannot commit violence towards persons who are not taking an active part in hostilities, or people placed in hors de combat. By executing that man on the ground, we successfully broke that rule. And finally, Article 15 of the First Convention states that at all times we should take all possible measures to search for and collect the wounded and sick, and protect them against pillage and ill treatment. So, by leaving that man on the ground next to some fire to bleed out and die, I'd say that we violated that article as well. And that's another 4 war crimes added to the list. Not bad, if I say so myself. Somehow, out of all the trials and tribulations, we got a somewhat good ending. The majority of the blood spilled came from our adversaries. Maker, even with his wounds, was going to make it. And Patricia found something else in Houston. Bravery, camaraderie. Not only had Houston melted Patricia's heart, but he had also fried our enemy's cerebral cortexes with his highly illegal chemicals, and both of those things combined were more than enough for her full, requited love. And so, as the time was winding down, things were settling at our colony. A wild man wandered into our tile on the last day. I was considering roping him into our colony and introducing him to a life of crime on some Tommy Angelo shit, but he really wouldn't be useful to us, so I just left him alone. By now, the operation had ceased and we had completed our objective. We were the most feared civilization on the Rim, since we hid behind hospitals and offered joints to our war prisoners. There was really no one like us. I decided to play an extra day to see the aftermath of my colony, so on day 16, an unexpected guest entered our colony's atmosphere. Rada Sparks, a 15-year-old child spy suffering from paralytic abasia, who's also pregnant, who's also Houston's daughter? Oh my god, the story just writes itself. And speaking of the big man, our power couple went on their first date, and they decided to shoot down some invading tribesmen. They had a great time mowing down the invaders, and even chased down the last tribal, who was trying to flee for his life. But oh, he just wasn't fleeing fast enough. Overall, they both had a great time, and by the time they returned, Maker built them a double bed made out of jade. Houston and Patricia fell asleep in each other's arms, and they both lived happily ever after. Right, so, how many war crimes did I commit in the span of 15 days? Well, in the end, the final number of violations was 11. In my opinion, it's an alright score, but I could definitely do better. For example, I could have started my colony with a child soldier, which would have been a free crime.
Please stop this madness.
Oh, and one last thing. Please don't commit war crimes in real life. Like, I better not catch anyone building a hospital near an important military objective. You got that? But thank you for watching this video through to the end, and I'll see you guys on the next one.